Hi, guys. Welcome to the Insiders with Liz and Amber. Thank you so much for being so patient. First, we're about 10 minutes late, but we were here. We were here trying desperately. Insiders is brought to you by Giant TV Niagara. I should say that. I always forget to say that. But we were desperately trying, weren't we, Amber?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
at one point, it said that it was on, and then it said that it went off, and then it said it went on, and so we don't know if you saw any of that. So we're going to start from the get-go, right, Amber?
Absolutely. Let's hit it from the top.
From the very top. So we were talking about what we were just doing. We both rushed to the computer because we were both outside in the garden doing our gardening thing, and so we were like giggling over how it was like, so we both realized it was that time, and we're both rushed inside. I mean, I threw makeup on for the event.
Yeah, me
Took
too.
me 5 minutes, so please don't critique the makeup job I got going on.
Well, I
But
have my messy bun going.
your messy bun is gorgeous. I'm thinking I should have done a messy bun because I still have like sweaty head from.
You look fabulous as usual. And that
God bless.
this is just the way that it is. You know,
Yeah,
we have so much time that it's so precious to all of us that if we're not actually people that go out of the house to work, and you're at home and you're working on projects at home or with your family, or you've got to make lunch, or whatever it is you're doing, there's always priorities, right?
exactly. Okay, so I've just pulled this up live on here so I can start to see some of the messaging. So we were talking about because we didn't know if we were live or not. So let me know. Oh, I am so sorry. You're going to hear that banging in the background.
Oh,
So this is the other cool fact about what's going on today. With not only was I in the garden, but my daughter dropped the grandkids off and said, "I got to go out without the kids." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing a live thing, Steph. I'll be right back. I'll be back before you do start your show." So that's her banging on the door, and I'm going to ignore her because I've already texted her and said, "You need to go around the back." So I apologize.
that is so funny because that happened. Like, well, my grandchildren are here, but
Yeah,
they're all like, they were like, can up and wanting to play and get attention and stuff, and I was like, I love you so much. Just give me a little minute, right?
I know. I know. You feel so bad, right? I'm like, now listen, guys, stay outside. Don't come in. Do not, because it'll be Emma, 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 Emma
Yeah.
every 3 seconds, and I won't be able to have a conversation. So
Oh gosh.
they're adorable, and I love
Yeah.
every second I have with them. But yeah, when we're doing stuff like this, it's impossible, right?
Yes, for sure.
So yeah, so we were kind of talking about Amber and I before we realized we actually may not have been on Facebook streaming live about the strife in the world and how overwhelming it has been for everybody, our clients. Just if you go on social media and you'll see there's two sides of the coin. Um, People are leaning to, yes, we agree, this is terrible, and then we have other people seeing the other side of it, like the police's side of it, because we're gonna. I guess I'm talking about this whole.
Are we
Black
talking about George
Yeah,
Floyd?
George
Yep.
Floyd. So we're talking about him and his situation and how that's really opened up a big discussion about being policed and being accountable and all of these different things. And I've noticed on a number of different pages, I don't know about you, that people, excuse me, people are really passionate, very extremely passionate about this. So again, the kids, I'm so sorry for you.
It's actually interesting because today we're talking about spiritual awakening because someone has asked us about that. And spiritual awakening is essentially a heavy topic.
Yeah.
And so when we have these distractions or we have these little blips in technology, it's helping to, change the energy and set the energy. And it's also a cumulative effort of our universal support system, our spirit guides, our angels, our, higher power, whatever it is, our loved ones, and everyone who is collectively behind the conversation that we're having today. So you will get all of that. And so bear with us as we are navigating through doing this energetic work with technology. You know, with respect to what's happening with racism around the world, I have always had my very strong views on it, even as a child. I wasn't somebody that grew up and knew the difference between black and white, or Asian, or, you know, man or woman, or, you know,
Exactly.
whatever. I did not learn that from my family.
Yeah.
I learned that from school. I learned that from media. I learned that from neighbors. I learned that from everybody else who started having those comments or making, you know, their thoughts known. And yes, it is divided, because you do have people who are for one perspective and there's another for another perspective. And that is causing a shift. And that shift is necessary, because we cannot be where we are spiritually as humanity and still have racism. We cannot still have sexism. We still cannot, you know, pay women less to do the same job, if not more. We cannot, you know, be so biased, because that is not a spiritually awakened person. That is not a spiritually awakened community. And that is, once you become spiritually awakened, you are one with everything. You have a higher, deeper awareness that everyone is connected. There is a bigger picture, and there is no difference.
Yeah.
This is my opinion. Liz will have her opinion, and everyone will have our own opinions. Yeah. I'm speaking today just in general of spiritual awakenings, and how do I know, and how do I, but because the energy has affected the whole, when you have a mass gathering of people in such things as protests, and when people come together as a group to make their voice heard, that is energy. That energy will tremble and trickle and affect all of us, whether we're sitting in our home and watching, or whether we're standing there in support.
It's been quite epic, really, to be alive during this time, right? Like, I keep telling my grandkids, this is history in the making. Like, we all have profound moments. Each generation has profound moments, and this is one of our profound moments. You're not going to really get the real scope of it for some time, I think, but you're right. A spiritually awakened person recognizes that we are all one. But where I've noticed, especially on some spiritually connected pages, the conflict between, you know, right and wrong. There's been a lot of different conversations, and some of it's validated, but at the end of the day, I guess we have to see it from this perspective, is how I see it. At the end of the day, it's human beings being treated like cattle, or less than, or non-human. And at the end of the day, that's wrong. And that's in my perspective. I'm not saying that's anybody else's. I'm just saying that's my perspective. As you, like you, Amber, I was raised in a home that was, I didn't see color. I didn't have any of those. I just never saw any other race as just a fellow human. Never saw it like that. And like you, in school, there was the awareness that came in that people had grievances with people that were different than them just because they were different. But I never really understood it. I never really fed into that. It never sunk with me. So, you know, I feel like you either accept people for who they are, and I accept people on their merit, on their energy. I like you if you're amazing. If you got a great energy and you're a good human being, I don't care. I don't care if you're whatever race, creed, color. I don't care. But at the end of the day, we have got to take our power back, and we want to be governed, but at the same time, we don't want to be governed. So we have to figure that out. And that's where I think politics are going. We're going to start to see, I'm going to make a prediction here. As a collective, we're going to start to see people wanting to be more self-governed, and the government will oversee the big picture, but we will be more self-governed. And that's where we're going in the future. That's my prediction.
what I love about the way of the future and the way of our leaders, because we have some very, very good leaders. We've had some very, very good leaders.
Yeah.
If you look back and you see the characteristics of their spiritual evolution through that leadership time in their life and continuing thereafter, it is very much an awareness, an openness, and an ability to, admit where we had shortfallings and moving forward and speaking for collective, right? So spiritually speaking, the most awakened are the best leaders. The most awakened are the best leaders, and you will have that. And there's differences, and there's also just energetic, like you said, you never resonated with something. Well, not all of us are meant to resonate with everybody, and that is part of a spiritual awakening, because you are not supposed to come to physical form and have a physical experience in a human life and not have any grievances with anything, because then we wouldn't be here learning and advancing in our spiritual goals. So no, I don't believe we're all supposed to love, be merry, be happy. And what is that saying everybody makes fun of? Rainbows and butterflies and unicorns or whatever.
Care Bear stare.
I get accused of that all the time. It's not rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. And I'm like, why? Why not? In my world, in my perception, I can make it that way.
Yeah.
So, but the spiritually awakened, and how do I know I'm in a spiritual awakening? Well, right now, collectively, as the world, we are awakening, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. We are not done yet. 2020 is it's only June. We're nowhere near done doing what 2020 was supposed to do. Yeah. And in another 20, 30 years, we're going to be doing it again. And it's going to take us a bit higher, and humanity is going to evolve even more.
Thank God. Thank God. Right? Thank God.
We're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So like we had a question on the Insiders page to discuss spiritual awakening. And so oddly enough, we've been discussing that in my membership that I have with my group. And when I brought that to you and I said, look, there's somebody wants us to discuss spiritual awakening, you're like, awesome, let's do it. So it just became the topic today for that reason. And we're kind of excited, but I do have a bunch of people chiming in. So I'm going.
I bet they are.
Okay, so I'm going to have a look here and see. We've got Stephanie, Ellie, Michelle, Tammy, Jamie, Mac, Jackie. They're all saying hi. Oh, and they're just watching. So actually nobody has chimed in with anything. Oh, isn't that funny?
All right.
Yeah. So
hello, everyone.
Hello. And thank you for joining us. If you have any questions while we go forward, and, give us the little heart symbol to let us know you're watching, and, maybe chime in while you're watching, where you're chiming in from. Where are you located, so that we can.
And tell Liz, are you currently in the midst of your own spiritual awakening? Because Liz and I opened up with talking about the universal spiritual awakening. And now we're going to talk about our each individuals. How do we know? How does it affect the universal consciousness? Where are you in yours? Do you know you're having one? Are you feeling it? Do you, what do you know?
Yeah. So we're getting a bunch of, so I've got, what exactly is a spiritual awakening? That's Tammy Suzette. And I believe it was you, Tammy, that asked the question of us to have this show. So do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first, Amber?
You go first.
Okay. So spiritual awakening, Tammy, is basically, in a nutshell, you're having ahas constantly, a series of awarenesses and things that you once had belief systems in are sort of flipped over. This is kind of how it worked for me. So your ahas are like major awarenesses, things that you were stuck in a pattern on, all of a sudden become less important, or you just let go of a lot of stuff. You start to want to feed on more and more information that's going to enlighten you. So you might be traveling down a spiritual path. You could be, going into religion in a big way. You could go into the spiritual path, pick any of the religions, and you could be following Buddhism. You could be whatever it is. You could start finding insight through meditation. All of these things are going to work individually for each person. And just because it worked for me this specific way, and that what Amber's going to share with you, her specific way, doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to work for you. This is a big deal in this industry, the spiritual industry. People think they have to follow, or they have to have the same kind of events happen to them in order to be on the same page as somebody they look up to or follow, so to speak. So just know that your spiritual awakening could be completely different. But for me, basically, I started to have very strong insight. So I've always been psychic. Okay. So let me just say that I've always been psychic. That's never been an issue. But my trust in that only happened about 30 plus years ago. And even when it began to be a trust factor where I started to trust it and believe it, I still didn't really trust it or believe it. I kind of just always saw it as common sense. And the awareness was just like, how does nobody else get that? How does nobody else see that? If I watch somebody do this, this, and this, obviously this is going to happen. Well, it wasn't obvious to the rest of the world. So the awakening for me started probably about 30 plus years ago, where I started to have profound, like, you can't deny this. This is the real thing, Liz. Awareness and insight, and just starting to trust the stuff that I was getting. Along with that, all the belief systems that I had, which were very fixed. I was very judgmental. I'd finger point at people a lot. How could you do that? Or why did you do this? I did a lot of that stuff. And then all of a sudden, I started to have the grander awareness. So I would see all sides of the coin, opposed to just linear thinking or linear seeing things. So you get this grander awareness of things, and you don't get as passionately upset as I used to. So my spiritual awakening is also like letting go of the small stuff, like no longer hanging on to things that you thought were important, or stuff, or like material things. Just letting go. It's about letting go, I guess. Hopefully that makes sense to Tammy, and I'll let you take over, Amber, with your.
Mm-hmm. Obviously being, a professional in the spiritual industry, you ask this question. You have multiple spiritual awakenings. You have different levels of them. So it's something that I've always pondered on and always asked my spiritual team to guide me on, because every spiritual awakening is for a different purpose. So I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Your different levels, you're peeling back that onion to kind of get to the core of who you are and what your essence is. So one isn't one and done. You've got multiple ones, right, Liz? You got to keep going.
Yeah.
So, when you are in a spiritual awakening, basically when you've had a spiritual awakening, you no longer are speaking, you're listening. You're an observer. You're able to, without preconceived ideas and preconceived notions and limiting beliefs, generational belief systems, formulate your opinion on something. You look for, what do I know is fact, and does it matter? Does it pertain to me? Does it shape who I am? Do I need to be involved in this, picking my battles? You're essentially becoming one with everything around you, understanding that everything is interconnected. You are essentially releasing your ego self and connecting to your higher self. So every spiritual awakening will get you closer and closer to connecting to your higher self. So your most authentic version of yourself, the self that you do not lose through lifetimes, through millions of years, that essence about you that carries through on and on, should you choose to come back in different lives or what have you. So the spiritual awakening will be different. Each spiritual awakening could bring up different hurts and different issues that you have experienced along the way. So you may be overwhelmed and inundated with memories and feelings of things that you had happen years ago. And it could also be shown to you in different ways. Every TV show, every talk show, every radio station, every person you see and meet is talking about some version of that old system, that old pattern. So you also have to identify that. Why is that there? Why is this happening? Am I hiding from it and digging my head in the sand, or am I going to hit it head on so I never, ever have to hear it again? It's no longer going to affect me in that way. So, you're also going to have surge of emotions. Things that you don't know that affected you in a certain way will automatically start to create an emotional response in you. But that's all that it is. Like, essentially, if I boil it right down, it is you releasing your ego self and connecting to your higher self without judgment, without criticism, without hurt and pain and sadness, and becoming a version of who you are. The reason spiritual awakenings cause you so much pain is because you're resisting changing. You're resisting the evolution. That need to see yourself through someone else's eyes is what's causing you to not evolve. It's causing you to be uncomfortable. So if you are okay, at the end of the day, you are okay with who you are because this is who you're supposed to be, your spiritual awakening will be great. It will be amazing. It will feel like ripping off that Band-Aid. But if you're resisting it because you need to see yourself the way that others have perceived you over time, it's going to be a struggle. It'll be harder.
Yeah. Which is essentially what you mentioned, the ego.
Yes.
And we need an ego. Like, don't get me wrong. We need an ego to propel us, for sure. However, when it creates drama or trauma, that's when you need to step back and look at that. But like you said, it's not for the faint of heart. Spiritual awakening. It is like getting down and dirty with the real you, changing that which you don't like about yourself, ascending. So Tammy asked, does it have anything to do with ascension? 100%. Yeah. It's
it is
essentially what it is, right? So, so you're constantly evolving. And like, I had the conversation with my guides years and years and years ago about, like, what's the deal? What's the deal about life? I remember, like, explain life to me. I always just ask them really easy questions.
Yeah. What is this here for anyway?
yeah, I got a couple of weeks. So they basically told me the purpose of life was to keep evolving and growing energetically. So by having the awareness, so all of the negative things that have ever happened, so I'll use me as an example, all of the negative things that ever happened in my life, or I perceived as negative, have actually been the most enlightening experiences I've ever had. They raised my awareness on such a grand level when I got out of my own way and out of my own misery and victim energy and, moved past that stuff and absorbed it as, like you had mentioned, you're supposed to feel stuff. You're supposed to feel sometimes pain and suffering and all of that. You're just not supposed to hang out there. I think that's what the awakening part is. You're not supposed to hang out there. Feel it, absorb it.
Observe it.
Observe it. Pay attention to, like you had mentioned, Amber, you're going to see people on TV, you're going to hear people on radio talking, you're going to hear songs that relate to what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And all of that is wisdom from your higher guides saying, we're here, we're helping you. You're not alone ever. Like, you're never, I always felt alone up until I started my awakening. Now I never feel alone. I feel so comforted and constantly supported by, just me. I feel supported by me, which is obviously because I have those guys with me.
Yeah, your life is happening for you.
Yeah.
And that's going to strike a nerve in some, because you can't sit there, Amber, and tell me that this devastation is happening for me. That's because we're in it. Okay. When we are in the emotion of the negative perception event or experience, your ego self, which is what we are as humans, that's what makes us human. So our emotions are what gets in the way of our higher self understanding, where we can kind of see the bigger picture. And you are supposed to have experiences that are perceived as negative in order to grow from them. Now, when you have a lot of negative things happen in your lifetime experience, you have a lot of growth, because you can still have spiritual awakenings when you're in the spiritual form. It just takes longer because you don't have that other human interaction. You don't have the negative things happening in the world to help your soul ascend or awaken or level up to help you along. So that's why spiritually we take a physical form, because we can get there and achieve our spiritual goals a hell of a lot faster than if we stayed and did it from the other side. So, those people that are creating, those coworkers that just make you want to call in sick every day, or the in-law that just makes Christmas miserable, or whatever, whatever it is, the neighbor from, hell, whatever it is. Imagine for a minute that you cut that energy cord from them. So you are no longer having an emotional response to their experience. You're not contributing to their experience. So now it's, wow, look at what they're doing. Wow, it's kind of self-destructive. Whoa, look at this. Like, good thing, thank God it has nothing to do with me, because it can land anywhere. They're just looking for the person who's willing to receive it landing on them. And then that's your choice to decide if you're going to let it land there. And that takes time. And same with Liz, like, you go through life and you have things happen to you. Like, there's things that will go on and on and on. And it'll depend on what you do with it. If you are hanging out in that, because there have been negative things that happened to me, but nobody would guess that, because everybody keeps saying, oh, you would never understand. Okay, well, that's true. And nor do I have to share with you or justify your opinion about it.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do. It does not matter. You just need to cut that energy and own your story. The other thing too, and then I'll let Liz talk, because I just blah today.
No, keep going, girlfriend, keep going.
Is the whole idea between how you allow the story to be told. How are you allowing it to unfold? Because I'm going to tell you something. Negative things happen to me. Negative things happened to me, but I no longer and will never give it energy to make it who I am, or to allow that piece of the story to get any more energy to cycle, to be told over and over again. Yes. That dies with me. That energy died right in that moment, because I'm not giving it energy to keep it being part of why I need to be validated to who I am, or why I was hurt, or why blah, blah, blah. So in that moment, I made a choice. I'm not going to call my mom and call my brother and call my best friend and say, look what happened, blah, 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 blah. Because that has now created the energy. So that original source, instead of me taking it as an experience to ascend or to level up, I've now evaded responsibility in it altogether. And I've allowed other people to see my perception, because the other person didn't get to tell their story. And it fueled my ego. So I made a choice a long time ago that is how I control how I perceive things and how I feel things, because it stops when I stop it. Yeah. And it no longer happens.
That's a brilliant way of putting it, because that took me a long time to figure out.
Yes, and same here.
Like, it took me a really long time to figure out. When I finally did get that, it was like having an easy button.
Yeah.
And it sounds ridiculous to say that it's easy, but it's actually easy when you do it. When we're addicted to drama, because let's face it, the world is all about drama, and we've been in masculine energy for a long time. And the world's been ruled by masculine energy for a very long time, and we're now coming into the feminine energy. And the drama that went with that, the fighting and the arguing and who's bigger and who's stronger or whatever, that's kind of going down now. We're starting to see us moving away from that, and we're in that zero tolerance factor where women. I explained it to some folks the other day, like, think of Mother Earth as the mother, and we're the children. And even though there's so much strife going on mom, right, on the mother, on Mother Earth, the whole thing is she's got our backs, and the world is going to figure it out. It's not happening fast enough because we're a fast food society now. We want it to happen like that. So the whole COVID thing came into, hello, that's not a spirit, everybody. That's
hello, Andrew.
You just gotta, hi.
Yeah, so cute. They saw me.
I know. The whole COVID thing, when you think about it, the higher awareness level thinking about it, it was the beginning of slowing us all down. Like it put the world on pause. That never would have happened any other way. And by us going into pause mode, we were able to think and see what was important, and recognize the love factor that we have for time, for family, for the lack of connectivity. We recognize that. There's going to be so many epic changes as a result of this, and now you're seeing the tolerance level. So Black Lives Matter, it's a big deal because they have been, Black lives have been repressed for hundreds of years. And a lot of people don't, they want to, like where I had alluded to at the beginning, they want to see both sides of the coin. And one of the things that I keep hearing is all lives matter. And we're not talking about all lives. We're talking about Black lives and the repression that they've experienced. And we've all seen for the last, since I've been an adult on the news, the horrific treatment that they have received. Now, do police have a difficult job? 100%. Would it be easier if people complied when the police showed up? 100%. However, it has expanded to this horrific state of affairs because there's like lacking respect on such a grand level with people in power and in authority. And when you have that level of lack of respect for other humans or life, this is what happens. And it's not right, and it needs to stop, and the whole world knows it. So this feels different to me. I don't know about you, Amber, but this one feels different. This feels like we're actually going to see some changes happening. I think the police force needs to, I think we need the police force. I know a lot of amazing cops, but I've also known some not so nice, power hungry, egocentric police officers. I've met some, and I can tell you, not good that they're in the police force. So at the end of the day, this awakening that we're all having on this topic it's bigger picture stuff. It's going to change. And like Amber had alluded to earlier, it's not going to happen overnight. So we all need to be patient. But time for patience as well has worn thin. So we need to be patient, but still persistent, if that makes sense.
Yes. And right now it feels different, Liz, because there is no room for it to be allowed to continue. So people feel empowered by having social media to be able to get their word out. Their voice is going to be heard. You can take pictures, you can have videos. There's different things that are now being captured to be able to slow this down. This recent event is not the only event. There has been countless events. This event is because of the time frame in which it has fallen. 2020 the millennials, you have technology, you have the ability to have so many humans feel entitled to be here and living in this human experience, that they're not living here with people that are not following against their whole love. And, you know, you had it back in the 60s, you know, love, peace, whatever. And that, you know, didn't have as much momentum, but it set the ground. It set the ground. And every time something happens, it sets more foundation and more foundation. You know, as soon as society says that we will no longer tolerate something, it will not have energy to continue.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just,
so it's a collective thing, and love and light outweigh darkness.
Yeah, always. Now this where I want to take it to this next page, because I had started to say I was on some spiritually guided pages through social media, and you know, one of the things that I noticed with light workers is we know what we know, and we know what we know because we've had the awakening and the awareness. But if you get stuck or fixated that once you know, that's where you go downhill, because you'll become flatline. I call it flatlining. There is no fully awakened, aware person on the planet. I can speak for myself here.
You can't be. Yeah, it's impossible. You cannot be fully awakened when you're in a human experience.
Exactly. But there are so many people that feel that because they're on this journey, they're you know, like they're masters, or they're the highest like aware person, and you will see that ego side of them come out, and that's okay, because you don't have to play into it. Like Amber said, I think that was really important that you shared that information, because you don't have to play the game. You don't have to participate in the drama. You just have to go, okay. You don't have to be right. I remember, you know, I love that your cat's just hanging out.
It's always Willow. Willow's always here for me.
Hello, Willow. The awareness that it is not for us to judge, but if we are brought into awareness of somebody else's insight, instead of shutting it down, listen, let it, like, plant that seed, allow it to germinate. And where does it fall for you? Why did you have to hear that? What was the part of that? Maybe it was to confirm how far you've moved up from that place. Or maybe it's new insight that wasn't even on your radar before. So it's just one of those, I think what, you know, anybody watching the show is following us because they're wanting to learn more about spiritual awareness and awakening and all of that. I just want you to know that even though Amber and I give our insights, there may be somebody that you watch that has a completely flipped agenda or view on something, and they may be right. You got to follow your path.
Absolutely. You have to follow what resonates with you.
Yes.
I say that all of the time, Liz. I say that. I say, just because you have 50 people that are in the same industry does not mean all 50 will be the proper person for your journey. You have to energetically resonate, because that's huge. Yeah. And you have to be able to know, you know, sorry, Liz, I kind of just interjected, but it's go. Much of a thing that hits home to me, because, you know, I have 100 books. I might only take one sentence or paragraph out of each book to cultivate who or what or when I choose to follow something. But those people or books were put into my spot because they deserved the right to be there. I gave them that energy to be part of my circle, my journey, and took what I needed and left the rest. And that's okay, because not everything is supposed to resonate with you 100% of the time, all the time, and not everybody's supposed to match up. And everybody is supposed to equally be entitled to provide their piece that the universe has sent them here to do. So 100 of us could be in this industry, and 100 of us are going to be sharing I'm hoping 100% of us are working authentically for the purpose we were sent here to do. Yeah. Are they all the same? Sometimes, a lot of times the same messages, and a lot of times not. but you have to respect and value each individual person as equally rightful to be here in this experience.
Exactly. That's exactly put. Exactly. Well put.
And that works for any person, not industry, not whatever. That's for any
Yes.
person.
Yes. It doesn't have to be a spiritual awakening to have that.
Yeah.
To be there. Okay, so let me see if we've got any people chiming in. So we've got Tammy was saying thank you. Vanessa's saying, I feel like I've had so many awakenings in the last 5 years, constantly shedding old patterns. That's one of the big ones for me, releasing old patterns and belief systems. That was how I knew I was elevating, and it felt so good. It was like getting rid of an old wardrobe, right? And putting on new clothes. That's kind of how it felt for me. Renee Ritchie's here and she's saying, hello, ladies. Ruth is watching. Stephanie says, I also feel like I'm experiencing many peaks and valleys as I learn to connect to my spiritual team and trust in this knowing. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you when I first started, and I'll let Amber answer how she felt about that. When I first started connecting with my team, I second guessed them all the time. I questioned everything they told me because that's how I had such trust issues, like beyond ridiculous trust issues. I'm not going to lie. I think it's one of my life lessons for life. I do have trust issues. However, learning to let go with them, like they're my besties, my very best friends, knowing that when I trust them, even when it doesn't make sense to somebody and they have me say things or present me in front of somebody and I'm like, what the heck's going on here? Why did you do this? There's always a reason. It always comes out in the end. And so now I fully embrace and trust. So try that. And go ahead, Amber.
It's so interesting because if we were not taught that our ego was our master, we would never question our intuition. We would never question it.
Right.
If we were taught and guided to trust your instincts, to follow your gut, to go with your feeling on something, we would never question our intuition. We would never do that. And there are so many people out there that need to follow their instincts for work, such as police, military, even like teachers will sit there and have to go down a different road to get to where they think that person is going to unlock to listen to what they're getting in a different way. Yeah. We're all trusting our instincts, and we would never, hunters, where to go. My husband is a fisherman. He, not for his job, but for hobby, he will fish, and he is really good at it because he uses his instincts to know where to go, what to do. I'm not going to talk about my feelings about the subject because it's not my experience, that's his, but he knows where to go and what to do because he's following that instinct. When you are trusting your spiritual journey and trusting your spiritual team when you're listening to them, don't be afraid to be hurt or to look stupid or to feel dumb or to try. A lot of what I uncovered about my spiritual journey along the way was I was afraid that if I listened to them, that I had to trust with so much love, and who the heck gets to get that? Like, how come other people will show me that I have to live within parameters, but I'm just supposed to be like, okay, no problem. I'm going to trust everyone and love everyone and be okay. And everyone's going to get my full love and trust. Yeah. And then I realized I want to be that way. That's who I am. So now when other people are in that state, because of whatever they experienced or how they were brought up, that's up to them. But I will still wear my heart on my sleeve, and I will still put myself up there on the stage to be hurt or to be pushed down, because it's my decision whether I'm allowing that to be affecting me. So I had to have a better love with my spiritual team to know that they would not put me in that situation.
That's right.
And just even Liz, with like when we talk about trusting when they're telling us something, trusting when we have a client in front of us and they are telling us something that sounds crazy, and the client is like, I was with you till that would never happen. Don't know what you're talking about. And then 3 days or 1 month or 6 months later, you get that message and it says, holy crap. Like I would have never saw it coming. Well, you only need to get 1 or 2 of those in your lifetime as validation for yourself or professionally to trust. And then you never look back. You say time will unfold.
Yeah. Yeah. When you get those really whacked out, crazy validations, like I only had 2, actually 2 profound. And it was after the second one that I was like, whoa, okay, I get it. You taught me. I get it. I'm listening. I trust you. There's a bigger picture here that I'm not supposed to know about yet, but you've shown it to me and I get it. So thank you.
And it's also perception. Can I share a story?
Please. Yeah.
This is a private story. And I only share it when I feel like it's necessary. But my oldest daughter got sick 2.5 years ago. It was just before Christmas. We had just moved into our current home and she started getting a cold like everybody else did. And she wasn't like bouncing back as well, but she also still went to work. She was also still trying to, don't call in sick. You have to be here. You have to show up. You have that sense of responsibility. And finally, one day she came down and she says, I can't breathe very well. So I looked at her and I thought, wow, you have cyanotic lips, like they're blue. So I said, we're going to the hospital. Now, just back up. I took her to the doctor 3 times that week. And all 3 times I was told it was a virus and that she just had to let it run its course. And this is what everybody was getting and let it go. And if I hear one more time, it's just a virus, I think people need to shake their head a little bit because there's nothing just a virus about it. There's HIV. There is, the coronavirus that's going on right now. It's not just a virus.
Yeah.
So she had this. So I finally took her to the hospital. And so long story short, within a couple hours, we went from, okay, she needs a course of antibiotics through IV. You're going to be going home in a few hours, to her having severe chest pain, being rushed in for a CAT scan to find out that she has bilateral lung pneumonia. But like pneumonia, it was in the lung, right? And that she might have cancer and she's going to die. So she got rushed into isolation. So in this moment, I had 2 choices. I had freak out, panic, and shut down, or I had shut up and listen.
Yes.
So I chose to shut up and listen. So as I sat outside of her room in isolation, not knowing 1 ounce of information because no one was answering me. I had to wait until Monday. This was Friday. I had to wait till Monday till a specialist came from Toronto to even understand what the CAT scan showed. And that's a long time to sit and wait. Any mom or loved one who has ever waited even minutes knows that it's an eternity, right? So in that moment, I waited and waited. So now we had a diagnosis. Now she's in the ICU. And we did this for 10 days. Every single day was hard. Every single day took some time. And every single day I had faith that I was listening to my spiritual team. If something felt off, I asked the question. If somebody gave me an answer I didn't like, I asked them again, or I got somebody else. So you learn to listen without the emotion. And I'm telling you, this took practice because in the face of that moment, it was, this is my baby, to shut up, Amber, and listen to what your spiritual team is telling you. And I will tell you, I went through spiritual ascension like no other in that 10 days. Now, my point of sharing this conversation with you, because it is private to me, is I did a meditation because I was overwhelmed. My heart chakra was way off balance. It was overwhelmed and it was heavy and my chest hurt. So I did a meditation when I came home to shower, the only 20-minute period I left her that whole 10 days. And I showered, and during my shower, I did a meditation. Archangel Raphael, I asked him to come in, and he does the heart chakra, and he's also responsible for healing. And I asked him for her, and he said, no, I'm not going to her. And I said, yes, go to her. Yeah. And he said, I'm not here for her, I'm here for you. And it still makes me shiver because I said, is my daughter going to die? And he said, yes. And in that moment, I thought, he doesn't mean physically. He means all that crap she had in her own heart chakra that caused this rare, like 1% chance of her getting this type of pneumonia. to happen because I've been telling her for a year before, clear it out, clear it out, clear it out. You're holding too much crap in there. She had her physical death, her spiritual death, and she was having it in that moment. And from there, I had to trust that this is what he meant. He meant she was spiritually dying in this physical illness, and that she would be okay and come out of it. So I got myself dressed and I got to the hospital, and I trusted and trusted and trusted that that was shedding. And I said to her, you have a choice right here. You are going to fight and get better, and your heart chakra is going to be clear and balanced, and you will no longer ever hold your voice back for anyone in this planet again. And you'll speak your truth, and you will heal and get better and go home, or you can go the opposite way. And in that moment, she chose. She had to make that own decision. And then she got better, and we were home Christmas Eve. 10 days, Christmas Eve, we got to come home. And it is one of the biggest spiritual awakenings I've ever had, because you have, in that moment, you have to trust like no other. And to hear, yes, this is going to happen. And you're thinking, that's not really what it means. I know that's not what it means. And push forward no matter what anyway, and open the windows and watch for the sun. And thank God it came up another day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a beautiful story, Amber. Thank you for sharing that. It was,
well, sorry if it was, it's just.
No, it was very passionate. I felt actually like I had to hold back some tears at a couple of points there. So I'm glad I held it back.
Yeah, I have to disconnect myself when I'm telling that story, because it is something that I share with people. And, because of, when you get a client or when you meet someone on the street, you're meeting them for a reason. And a lot of times my clients are sharing something similar in that moment, or I had to go through that in that moment. That every single client I had in that 3-month, 6-month period was also, and it was like, okay, Amber, you needed to know what this felt like in order to be empathic in a way that you would never have understood before. Yeah. And it gave me a gift.
That's a profound thing you said there, because a lot of the time, depending on what's going on around me, a lot of people will be coming in going through similar situations. It won't be exact. And so you may find, those of you watching, that you might attract people that are going through similar hardships or dramas or what have you. And you will also attract people who are like in a higher awareness, that are going to pull you beyond this. So if you're watching this, it's because you're likely due for an ascension, and you're on the awakening bandwagon, and we just needed to confirm with you what was going on with you.
Absolutely, because you are losing sleep, you are changing your eating patterns, you're changing your physical fitness regimens, you're having these emotions, you're dealing with crap, you're probably doing financial stuff or changing your homes or trying to, all these things are getting you prepared for this ascension. So if you are having any of those patterns and changes, the things that Liz and I have been talking to you about today, embrace it, right, Liz? Like, just embrace, because you can't hide. You might be able to evade it right now, but guess what? It's coming for you again. Like, you're going to get this again with a different person. It's going to come. So you might as well just like Liz said, get down and dirty and in there and just get it, like, knock it out of the park.
Exactly. I love it. It's the, when you have a physical emotion like sadness or pain or suffering, be in the moment.
Yes.
Allow the pain to happen. Allow the suffering to happen. There's way too many pills thrown out right now to suppress our emotions and our feelings. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing for some people. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, be in the moment, express, allow yourself to have the feeling and emotion. It's okay. It never kills us. What kills us is hanging out there for long periods of time and not trying to see beyond that, because a lot of people will like hanging out in that negative because it's comfortable. I know. I was that girl.
Well, it's like even with relationships, because right now we are like in the same dwelling. We are there, like we are in it together. Like, you cannot like get away from a relationship, right? Yeah. So you have more people who are learning a lot more about their partners and their children or whoever they're with. than they had ever imagined that they could, or seeing them like, wait a minute, you never used to like that, now this is like, I didn't know. Well, you weren't slowing down to understand, and that's why you weren't aligned anymore. But I have to laugh because we're talking about relationship changes and a spiritual ascension and how that affects a relationship, because you can grow together and have spiritual awakenings at different parts of your life. You don't have to be the same all the way through, because again, you're helping each other along the way. But how many of you have had a disagreement with your spouse or a child or whatever, maybe an adult child, and you have hung out there and camped out for 3, 4, 5 days, not letting yourself give them the chance to get off the hook, or punishing yourself for something that you didn't know better to do, or you did and you made a choice. Yeah. So imagine if you thought, hey, my end goal is I'm still going to be married to this person, or I'm still going to have this as my kid. So the end goal is, do I want to spend 48 to 72 hours being miserable? Or do I just want to know, okay, this happened, it's over, I'm pretty pissed off about it, but guess what? Like, let's just move forward. Because the quicker you can get out of that state, and the only way you can get out of the state of anger, depression feelings, not depression, mental illness, right. Depressive feelings, anxiety, or resentment, is if you change your action. So I'm not going to sit here and be miserable in the corner. I'm going to say, let's go outside, go for a walk, or I'm going to make dinner and you go do something else, or have a shower, change it up a bit. But look at your end goal. If your end goal is not to be with this person forever, or not to have that, then you need to do some different thinking. But ultimately, if that's what it is, don't stay so long in that anger zone.
I know. And remember, folks, it's a marathon. It's not a race. You know, like spiritual awakening, it's a forever gig. I tell that to everybody. You are forever going to be doing this awareness raising. It's never going to end. You will never be the master as you think. Just as you get comfortable, I always liken it to children, raising children. You know, just as you get comfortable with that little baby, then all of a sudden, you know, they're starting to move around, and now you got to be careful that they're moving around. And then they start to, you know, change their eating habits, or, you know, but it's no different. You're going to keep evolving and growing and growing. And if you can have the attitude of embracing it instead of resisting it, like Amber said at the very beginning, just embrace it. It's just going to be so much easier. It's like having an easy button. It doesn't mean that I always embrace it. Like, I know it's an easy button, because when I have embraced it, I'm like, well, that was easy.
Right.
I didn't have to resist forever, right?
You get stuck. It's easy to get stuck because you're automatically trying to figure it out yourself. And then you're like, wait, why am I doing that? At some point, you're just like, come up for air and realize where you are, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we do have a few more things here. So, Karen, okay, I got to scroll back. There's a few here. Okay. Karen is saying, love you both, amazing spiritualists. So glad I remembered. Yay. Okay, we're glad you joined us too, Karen. Tammy says, I feel I was awakening and got overwhelmed with my past. Now that I'm through that, I feel a little lost. How do I continue my awakening? Well, we kind of alluded to some of those things. You know, our past is one of those anchors, right? It's an anchor that we either drag through life, or we pull it up and put it on the deck and continue sailing. You do have to, if you were the type of person that didn't go through the emotional side of it, if you put it back far into the reaches of your brain and didn't ever deal with the issue of things that happened in your past, then you have to go back and revisit them. And that's okay. It's good to clean up the past. It's like having a good spring clean of our memories. It's just take it for what it is. It's an event that's no longer part of you. Like Amber has said, you get to choose your feelings and emotions on it. So if you take it from a perspective of it's a past event, it cannot be changed. The only thing that can be changed, not the physical, but the mental perception of it, or the learning, or the expertise that I gained as a result of going through that, is how I would.
And if I cannot let it go, then there must be a reason. Am I supposed to be teaching on the subject? am I supposed to be an advocate on the subject? So look at why you're being reminded of it.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Stephanie saying she relates to Tammy. Yes to the coworkers. So when you were talking about coworkers,
Yeah, those coworkers.
She's saying I'm finally learning to understand my Earth School lessons. Cool. Wow, Infinity. Epiphany. She says Epiphany. Epiphany. Sorry. I apparently can't read. I've got the wrong glasses on. I don't know if you guys noticed. I don't wear these very often, so I can barely see what I'm looking at here. These are my cheap dollar store ones, but they didn't have the 3. They only had the 175. So these are not the greatest for me.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Oh, Amanda Dubois watching again. Hello, Amanda.
Hello.
So that we're getting a lot of wows and beautifuls. Tammy says, thank you for sharing, Amber. We needed to hear that. And
Thank you.
Vanessa, Amber, oh, so more people are waiting. The awakening never ends, Vanessa says, and you're right. No, it doesn't. Crystal's watching. Tammy says, good way to put it. Tammy says that, yes, that is what I did. Perfect. And oh, well, that's a great point, Amber. And Tammy says, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both. And
thank you guys.
So I'm just looking at the time, Miss Amber. It has flown by. We are 10 minutes past our 1 hour. How we do that? It's easy, right?
Yes,
it's easy.
It is easy because you're just propelled to speak and share, and and I love that people are also asking the questions, because as a spiritual educator, and Liz, myself, we don't want anybody to be in a situation ever where they are afraid to ask a question and then struggle on their own, when there are so many people ahead of us and so many people now, and there's so many people out there that have already done that hard work. Yeah. So we have so much education before us here and coming up after us with the kids that are coming up. So never ever be afraid to ask anybody for help. And again, just pick who you resonate with and take pieces of it and then create your own version of yourself.
Perfectly stated. I couldn't say it better myself.
Well, guys, Liz, have a great day.
Oh my goodness.
In your garden.
Yes. Well, it's done now. I got started at 7 this morning. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, then you're all done.
I get to enjoy it now.
Good.
Better. Well, you enjoy your garden, Amber, and everybody that's watching.
Yes, everybody.
Get outside and get your feet in the dirt or in the grass, maybe, and enjoy the sunshine. Hopefully, it's sunny where you're watching from, and if it's not, just remember, love is the only thing that's real. So Keep on loving, folks. Keep on loving.
Liz is very right there, guys. Okay.
Bye.